morning! Today we're going to be making cinnamon rolls. This recipe is from Paula Deen. I've made it several times, absolutely love it. Tons of butter, tons of sugar, the softest, fluffiest rolls. This recipe is a little bit different than other ones we've been doing because it uses melted butter and scalded milk. So we're working with really warm ingredients this time around. This dough has 2 rises. One will let it rise in the bowl, and then we'll punch it down and shape it, and then it'll rise again as the rolls. Then it'll go in the oven at 350 for about 35 minutes, and then we'll put a glaze on it, and then they'll be ready to eat. For this recipe, we'll need flour, sugar, milk, salt, butter, yeast, and an egg. And then for the filling, we'll need powdered sugar, cinnamon, and vanilla. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and scald our milk. So the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of milk. I'm not going to measure it at this stage. I'm just going to pour in a generous amount, maybe like a cup or so. And then I'm just going to turn this on to medium heat. And we're basically just going to wait for it to get warm and bubble, and then at that stage it'll be ready to add to our dough. Okay, so while our milk is scalding, heating up, we're going to go ahead and get started on our other parts of our dough. So the first thing we're going to do is activate our yeast. I'm actually running low on yeast, so I'm just going to use the rest of what I have, which I estimate to be like 1.5 teaspoons, maybe 2 teaspoons. And we're just going to do a 1/2 cup of warm water and a teaspoon of sugar. And again, our warm water should just be kind of like warm to the touch, definitely not hot and not cold. It's better to err on the side of being a little bit more cold than a little bit more hot, because we don't want to kill our yeast. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of sugar. And then we're just going to stir to combine that. And let that activate. And then into our mixing bowl, we're going to put a 1/4 cup of sugar. So we're going to use 1/3 cup of butter, or about 76 grams, melted. Alright, so our 1/3 cup of melted butter. We're going to add in a teaspoon of salt. And our egg. And then I'm just going to go ahead and whisk this together. Our milk is looking pretty good, so you can see there's kind of like bubbles around the sides and the base of the pot. So we're just going to do our 1/2 cup of milk. Mix those together. And then we're going to put in 2 cups of flour and then mix it until it's smooth. And then we will add our yeast mixture. So again, 2 cups of flour is about 240 grams. This recipe calls for like 3 to 3.5 cups of flour. So I usually start pretty light and then just add what's needed as I knead the dough. And so as you'll see, this comes together really quickly. It's another reason why I like making cinnamon rolls so much, because they're such a crowd pleaser, but they're not nearly as involved as some other kind of, I don't know, more specialty baked goods. You don't need a stand mixer, you can just use a whisk. It's great, love it. So now that's all in there, we see that our yeast has started to bloom, so we're going to go ahead and just add that. Kind of work that into our flour mixture. And then we're going to add in another cup of flour, or a little bit less, just kind of enough to get it to stick together. And this is good enough at this point. So then I'm going to go ahead and flour my work surface. And then I'm just going to go ahead and throw this on here. And I know it's really soft at this point. If you wanted to mix it longer in the bowl, you definitely can. I don't know. I like to work this with my hands. I'm going to put on like a 1/2 cup of flour. Just kind of pat that in there. And then just work it with my hands. Sometimes I'll do this in the bowl too. But I figured I would just lay it flat for you guys. Sometimes I'll literally just knead it in the bowl, but I have to make sure that I don't under-knead it. That's definitely my weakness if you watch my challah videos, under-kneading things. So, and yeah, the recipe has some variance in it, and like 3.5, 4 cups of flour. So I've never really been concerned about adding too much flour to this because you only start out with like 2-3 cups in the bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more flour at this point. Give yourself a little flour bath. Instead of like worst cooks in America, it's like the messiest cooks in America, me. Okay, so I'd say that we're almost there at this point. The dough is behaving well. It's still a little bit sticky, but nothing too bad. It kind of will get more sticky as you work all the flour in. So I just try to not really add more flour at this point, just kind of use what's already on my work surface just to keep it from sticking. And if I need to, I'll dust my hands a little bit. And then kind of just make sure I pick up all those little scraps as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about this at this stage. It's not really too sticky at all now. Happy dough. It's doing what it's supposed to. It's happy. It's staying together. Some good dough. So we're just going to put this, I'm just going to butter, use some of the drippings from my melted butter. I'm just going to butter this bowl, and we're just going to let this sit until it's double in size. So probably at least an hour, maybe a little bit more if your house is cold. I actually turn my oven on and let it sit near the oven. Just kind of like an isolated place to keep my dough warm. But yeah, we'll revisit this in an hour or so and then see how it's doing. And then we will shape and fill our dough. So I'll see you then. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and roll out our dough for the cinnamon rolls. So this has doubled nicely. It has been over an hour for sure. It's been maybe about 2.5. So this is what we're working with. Alright, so we don't have to worry about punching that down because we just moved it out of the bowl. And we are just going to roll it out. I think, oh, I need to put some flour in here. I think 11 by 14 is what we're going for. But I don't really stress about the size too much when it comes to cinnamon rolls. I just try to get it to be square. Just for kicks and giggles. We'll measure it and see what size it is. The longer this way, the more spirals you get in the roll. The longer this way, the more rolls or the thicker rolls you get. It is about 19 by like a foot. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. What we're going to do is we're going to spread melted butter on it. Ooh. And this is kind of the fun of making cinnamon rolls. It's a little messy. This is a half cup of melted butter. You definitely don't have to use this much. Like I said before, it's a Paula Deen recipe. And that's what Paula Deen wants. So that's what we're going to get. I'm not going to worry about any butter that spills off because it's just extra. What I should have done though is use this butter for my pan, because I do want melted butter in here. So I'm going to pour a little bit of what's left. This is just our baking dish that's going to go in the oven. I'm just going to smear my extra butter at the bottom of this pan. Take some of this butter, just chaotic maybe, and spread it on there. And we're actually going to coat this in sugar as well, just so you get deliciousness in every bite. That's the goal, right? As you'll see as you watch my recipes, some of them are like really kind of formal and I don't know, there's a lot of tools needed, and then some of them, like these cinnamon rolls, are perfect for kids because you can just get in there with your hands and it doesn't even matter. And then for our cinnamon sugar mixture that goes in the cinnamon rolls, we're going to do 3/4 cup of sugar. I don't know if you can see this. You definitely cannot. This is hilarious. It's just the rolls. My bad. Okay, that's better. Okay, so 3/4 cup of sugar. And then we're gonna, sprinkle some on the bottom of our baking dish. Not that much, that's way more than you need. Just like, so you have some sweetness at the bottom of the rolls. But that doesn't have to be perfect, anything like that. And then we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. You can do other things too. You can do cardamom. You could add nuts or raisins if you hate your friends. Mix that together. Alright, so we're just going to sprinkle this. Again, we're not going for perfection. We're just going for everywhere. I always start just like this with the spoon. And I'm like, actually, I can just do this. We basically just don't want any butter, and then we also don't want kind of mounds of sugar either. So I just kind of pat down any mounds of sugar I have. If I see something that needs a little bit more sugar, when we roll it, the edges are going to get covered, so I'm not too worried about the edges. So we're going to go ahead and roll this up now. And we just kind of want to roll it evenly and tightly so that all of that filling stays in there. And it will spill out at the end. Okay, love it, beautiful. Okay, and then I saw some really cool people online measure it out with their knife. I don't have a giant serrated knife, I just have little ones. But I was like, maybe I can use this. Take it and fold it. So then you have lines. And they're all the same. You see? I was like, that's cool. But you don't want to cut it with this kind of knife. You want to use a serrated knife. Because it'll help keep your layers intact, as opposed to a flat straight edge knife will kind of smush everything together, so you want to saw through your rolls. Now I move this into our nice clean spot. And again, I just buttered and dusted some sugar in the bottom of the pan. And we're just going to put them in here. It's okay if they're a little gooey. That's fine. They're all going to rise and touch, and so I don't stress too much about what the outside of the roll looks like. Nothing more satisfying than sawing a cinnamon roll. And I don't stress about how many rolls I make per pan. I think the original recipe says 12 to 15. I would say I usually get at least 12, but definitely more most of the time. And then I also have made mini cinnamon rolls. Where that time I just divided the dough in half and then rolled it basically the same length. but they're just smaller rolls. I'm going to put that guy in there. And so they don't need to touch. We want to give them a little bit of room to expand. If the ends flop over like that, that's fine. You can like tuck it in if you want to. I don't know if it'll stay, but you could kind of do that, but then you're kind of like losing that outside roll a little bit, so it's fine. These look great. That's so funny, this is 12. Oh, okay. I didn't see that coming. Alrighty. So we're going to put our little cinnamon rolls. This one's a little like sad, so I'm just going to scoop that up in there, flip it over, and then it'll sink into the little rolls there. But we're going to just cover these up. I just try to space them out a little bit so they have space to expand. And we're going to let them sit 45 minutes at least, really until they kind of like fill out the pan. So I'm just going to check on them in like an hour and see where they're at. And then I'll check it with you. And then after they're ready, we're going to bake them at 350 just for like a half hour, maybe a little bit less, till they're brown on top. And then we'll make our glaze and glaze them. So, see you in a minute. Okay, so it has been about an hour. These are what we're looking at for our rolls. And so our oven is heated to 350. So we're going to go ahead and pop these into the oven. I think I might just start with it for 25 minutes and then check on them. Put our rack in the middle of our oven. They smell great already. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and make my glaze. So for this, really easy. It's just powdered sugar and water and vanilla. I actually really like the taste of glaze with milk though, so I think I'm going to swap out our water for milk. Oh, we need butter. I forgot. We're going to do 4 tablespoons of butter. We're going to melt this down. Do this the quick and dirty way. And we're just going to make the whole thing in our measuring cup. It's just easy. Why not? Alright. So, we've got our melted quarter cup of butter. And then we're going to add 2 cups of powdered sugar. And we're just going to measure it with the measuring cup. So it should be like 2 1/4. And again, we're making a glaze here, so we're not overly concerned about kind of having too much of one ingredient or the other, because we can adjust accordingly. So we do have, it's like about 2 1/2 cups in there. Then we're going to do a teaspoon of vanilla. And I did use salted butter as well. If you use unsalted, you might want like a pinch of salt in here. And then we're just going to go ahead and mix this. Just add a couple tablespoons of milk. And then if you don't want to do milk, you can also do hot water, which is what I normally do. I've been making glazes with milk. And I'm like, this is so good. And the thickness of the glaze really just depends on how warm the cinnamon rolls are when you put it on there. If the cinnamon rolls are really warm, you're going to want the glaze to be a bit thicker so that it kind of like spreads out. And if your cinnamon rolls are like room temperature or cooler, then you want to do a thinner glaze so that it spreads easily. The biggest thing here is just making sure that there's no lumps of powdered sugar in our glaze. So this is looking good. I'm going to let my rolls cool a little bit before I put glaze on them, just because I like kind of the appearance of the glaze. It's like pretty thick still, but if the rolls are a little bit warm, then it'll soften. Cool. So yeah, we'll let that chill, and then we'll get our rolls out of the oven here in just a minute. Okay, so our timer just went off, and they definitely look done. Beautiful. So this is, yeah, I just did 25 minutes. That's what you're looking for. Brown on top, brown around the tops there. So we're going to let those just cool for just a minute, and then we'll ice them, and then we'll taste them. Yay! So these have cooled a little bit. Still like warm. Definitely not completely cold. And our icing is pretty thick. But I think they'll spread out. It'll spread out fine on top of the rolls, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So I just kind of just blob it across the top. Oh, that was a lot. Sugar. Okay, thanks, whisk. All right. So yeah, we'll just spread it around a little bit. Kind of just make sure we get it on the top. You can always make like a little bit more icing too. It's, you know, it's just sugar. But if you're going for a certain aesthetic, you could definitely make more. I always think that this is plenty though. Especially when it's put on and they're warm. Yeah, so you'll see it's kind of like sinking in, and I love that when it like sinks between the rolls. Oh, they look so good. Let's give this a taste. Mmm. I feel like that little bit of milk and the icing has actually made a difference. It just tastes like, I don't know, a little warmer, I guess. Oh, it's great. It's great. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make these. They're great. Crowd pleaser. I've never had someone say that they don't like one of my cinnamon rolls, so go for it. As you can see, it's not too complicated. Don't need any fancy equipment. Just need some time. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave any comments, any questions, anything you need, just let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. You're gonna be fat. You're gonna be fat. When you get fat together.